All in Sports Network. We love sports.
It is Monday, May 11th, right here on your daily fix for all things Texas Longhorns. We are recording on Mother's Day, so a happy Mother's Day out there to all the mothers who listen to this podcast, all the single mothers. What's up? DMs are open. But yeah, no.
Hope your girlfriend's not in the same room.
No, she's in another room. But yeah, it was a good weekend to be a Stars fan. Obviously, Jake and I rocking our Stars gear. They come up with a big win over the weekend. We won't talk too much about it, but in terms of the baseball diamond and the Texas Longhorns, whether that be baseball or softball, a bit of a struggle this weekend. But we're going to get into not only the series with the Florida-Texas series, but and then the SEC tournament with the Lady Longhorns as well. But we're also going to start talking a little bit of what the postseason picture looks like for those two teams. And Jake, before we get going, Mother's Day weekend was this weekend. Do anything special, outside of your being in your mother's basement recording this podcast?
No, my mom's about 3 hours away. So
did you at least call her?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Called her.
I wouldn't have to call Debbie and be like, look, I'm sorry, Jake didn't do this, but your favorite son, I'll give you a call.
You are probably the favorite son, but no. So didn't go down there this weekend. She was just here a couple weekends ago. But we'll probably plan something to see her again soon because of it. And then other than that, I mean, did some kind of fun this weekend. Went to a comedian show, but that was not related to Mother's Day. That was related to my wife's birthday from last weekend. So
gotcha. Well, cool. Yeah, no, we had a little get together, had some lunch, had some fajitas, and just kind of hung out, watched the beginning of the Stars game, left after the first period, got home and watched the rest of it, and just kind of hung out and got the house all cleaned up for my girlfriend, who is a mother of 2 plus my kiddo. So yeah, just a busy weekend, but a good weekend, fun weekend. And
did smoke some ribs today. I did do that.
Nice. How'd those turn out?
Pretty good. I had that weird. This is a story that is not going to
resonate with
no
anybody
one's
else.
Gonna be able to relate to. But
Yeah.
I had that weird freaking bone.
Did you
running
really?
through just like 3 of the center ribs, which sucks because the center ones are the the meaty, really good cuts, and just like half the meat not on the bone because of that weird just like bone that runs through. It must just be on. I need to do research on it, figure out exactly what it is because. Yeah. Most of the time it's not run, but you do get some every now and then that have that, and it drives me nuts.
Interesting. Yeah, no, that's really weird. And obviously like restaurants and stuff probably throw those away because I've obviously never had that whenever I order ribs or something at a barbecue place, or whatever. So that's strange. But yeah, no, it was a difficult weekend to watch Texas baseball, to watch Texas softball. Didn't perform the way we probably wanted them to. Softball got embarrassed, didn't even show up against Texas A&M. Texas baseball against Florida. Bats didn't really show up all that much. Decent pitching, I'd say, but still just inconsistent. Not something that I would say like to write home about from the pitching lineup at all. But yeah, it was mostly the bats, I think. And then softball as a whole was just didn't really even look that great against Ole Miss. Just was the better team against Ole Miss. Ended up winning that game. But yeah, we'll start with baseball, Jake. We'll kind of go through the series, what our thoughts about it were, and then really following the Arkansas series, not the Texas-Arkansas series, but the Arkansas was LSU. They played LSU this weekend, and why Texas actually is now pretty much set up to at least share the regular season SEC title after Arkansas dropped a couple games against LSU, which was big for Texas. So let's go ahead, jump into it. Texas lost to Florida in this series 2-1, lost game 1, 8-2, won game 2, 5-2. Still didn't look that great. And then game 3, just abysmal from the batter's box for the Texas Longhorns, losing that one 4-1. But losing this series doesn't necessarily end Texas's hopes of winning the SEC. In fact, following Arkansas's kind of hiccup against LSU, Texas probably has a better opportunity to win the SEC now than they did prior to this weekend.
Yeah, if you would have told me they were going to lose this series, I would have said their hopes of winning the SEC were probably over. I'll be honest, I'm still not feeling great about them going into OU. If they play like they have in these last couple of weekends, I wouldn't bet on them winning a single game in Norman. The OU is coming off of a series loss at Kentucky as well. So neither team really playing their best baseball right now. I know OU's been sliding down the polls recently, but yeah, I mean, just Florida was playing good baseball going into this series, but that's the team that Texas should beat, especially when it's your final regular season home series at home. And the pitching had issues like we saw against Arkansas, hitting batters, too many walks, not enough control of the command of the strike zone, and then the bats have just been horrendous for 2 weekends straight now, and not even good on that Tuesday night game either.
No, they weren't great on Tuesday night either. But you and I, we were talking a little bit about the possibility of getting Bailu back, how much that could help this team moving forward. Don't hold your breath for the OU series, Texas fans, but maybe, possibly, probably the SEC tournament is whenever we could see Bailu come back. But more than likely, I mean, I would say almost for certain, at least the regionals when we need him the most.
Yeah, and that will be a huge boost to the lineup, just not only mentally for them, but Bailu was your best hitter. And he comes back in. Now that's not necessarily means he's going to pick up right where he left off, but hopefully you can get the SEC tournament to kind of get going, regionals. Hopefully Texas has no issues in that. Help him get going, and then come, hopefully a super regionals, he can be 100%, rocking and rolling, trying to get them to Omaha, because at this point you feel like a trip to Omaha would really solidify this as being a great first season in the SEC for Texas. And Max Bailu coming back, I feel like to make it to Omaha, Texas is going to need him back. But Texas just needs to find a way to claw 1 or 2 more wins before we get to that postseason play, meaning postseason after the SEC tournament. Because then as long as they can get that, in that top 8 seeds, they'll at the very least be guaranteed to host a super regional. And you feel like hosting is going to be a real key to making it to Omaha. If they go on the road, it's going to be significantly more difficult.
Yeah, no, I would completely agree with that. But yeah, I getting a fully healthy team right before, well, obviously not fully healthy, but obviously Jared Spencer, he's out, not going to count him. But of guys who can come back, return to action, Jonah Williams is back in the lineup now. You're going to get Bailu back eventually. I think that's something to be, excited about if you're the Texas Longhorns and going into regionals and getting that set up. But yeah, you still have an OU series coming up, and you can't overlook that series. You want to go out on a good note, on a high note, at the end of your conference season. And let's be real, this team is not going to settle for sharing the lead or sharing an SEC title. Essentially, here's what the scenario looks like. 1 win in Norman would give them a share of the SEC with Arkansas. 2 wins gives them the outright SEC title and likely the number 1 overall seed come regionals. And we'll get to host, obviously, the super regionals getting into the College World Series if they can advance that far. With all that being said, though, I think they want to come out and play their best baseball, sweeping OU, get back on track, get that groove back, get that rotation back of your pitchers, and kind of a regular rotation of guys pitching the amount of innings that you'd like to see them, whether that be Flores going at least 5-6 deep into the game and not having to pull guys out 2-3 innings into the game and getting deeper and deeper into that rotation so early into games. And I think that's really what's been hurting Texas, because then the next day is affected, and the following that Sunday is affected. And so, yeah, it's been one of those challenges through Arkansas and through Florida that hopefully, if you get off to a hotter start, a better start with your bats and your pitching against Oklahoma, you're probably looking at a more kind of regularly managed game by Schloss and this coaching staff.
Yeah, and on the winning 1 game guarantee a share too. Don't forget at the same time Arkansas is playing Tennessee.
And they could lose 2 or 3 of those games, and then it just doesn't matter. Texas wins.
Yeah, if they drop, because I think LSU is out of the running. I think it's just, even though LSU won that series this weekend, I think LSU's out of the running. I'm not 100% sure on that, but But yeah, I mean, Texas still in the driver's seat of the SEC despite dropping back-to-back series. But I think everyone wants them to win this series against OU, not leave it up to chance with Arkansas. And just to win a series again, get the momentum heading in the right way, because right now it just feels like they're on a little bit of a free fall. Because even that second game, they the Tuesday night game was not impressive. Luckily, they have no Tuesday night game this upcoming week, by the way. I think they need a little bit of a break, some time to kind of look at film, figure out what's going on in the batter's box, what's going and get the batting cages, try to get ready for the OU series. But they barely scraped out that second game against Florida. That was after a long weather delay. They were able to kind of come out. It's kind of a weird game. They were able to get momentum back. Jonah Williams kind of delivered the huge shot to win it with bases loaded. I think it was a bases loaded double that cleared the bases and took the 5-2 lead. But yeah, not a good weekend for Texas baseball, even a worse weekend for softball, which we'll get into here in a minute. And hopefully they can right the course against OU because A, they have a chance to win an SEC championship, and B, just now is the time of year where you got to be playing like you were the whole season and not just these past 2 weekends, which Schlossnagle actually said after this loss to Florida, that this was the most difficult and painful loss of the season in it by far. When you consider it was senior day, it was Sunday, they had win and you guarantee an SEC share of the title, and you could have done that on senior day on a Sunday, and you just are a no-show at the plate. Schlossnagle was very disappointed, and so hopefully him and his staff are able to kind of light a fire under this team. But baseball's not exactly like that. Like with football, where you get angry and that's a better thing. Baseball is a little more. It's just very different.
Honestly, if you play with more emotion in baseball, you're probably more likely to screw up and make a mistake and make an error, and you're trying to swing too hard and you're letting your emotions get the best of you. Baseball is more of a sport where you need to mentally kind of be in a more of a better routine and kind of just get your timing and your swing corrected in terms of the timing of it and identifying pitches and just being better at the mental side of things and keeping your composure more than getting fired up and amped up.
Almost a little bit more like a golf type of mentality. Obviously, it's more of a physically demanding sport than golf, but just as far as how the mentality is different from, a basketball, a hockey, a football, where getting angry is probably going to lead to you playing better, kind of lighting a fire under your team. You can holler and yell, but if you're just not connecting the bat to the baseball, it doesn't matter.
Jake, let's go ahead and take a look at what the projected field of 64 looks like for regionals. Texas currently sitting at the number 1 overall seed. They've got UTSA, Kansas State, and Oral Roberts within their region. Now, I do want to preface this before we get into it. The projections that we are currently looking at have not been updated to this weekend series yet. So a lot of things could change. A lot of things can flip around, and we'll get into that when we talk about Texas A&M getting swept by Mizzou. 2 seed would be Arkansas. They've got Dallas Baptist, KU, and Missouri State. Florida State's the 3 seed, LSU the 4 seed, Georgia the 5, Auburn the 6, North Carolina the 7, Nashville with Vanderbilt getting that 8 seed, and that 8-seeded regional, it actually pretty looks like it'll be pretty entertaining. Right now, you're looking at Vanderbilt, Louisville, Xavier, and Yale. That might be a fun little region right there to kind of keep your eye on. And then going into the 9th, you've got Tennessee. Clemson is the 10-seeded regional. Coastal Carolina at the 11. They've got NC State. Florida as the 3 seed. That's a nasty 3 seed. High Point as the 4 seed. And then as your 12, you've got West Virginia. Oregon as the 13 with TCU, Cal Poly, and Fairfield. That's actually a pretty interesting regional. Oregon State as the 14 seed, but with Oklahoma, UConn, and Nevada. UCLA is the 15 seed with UC Irvine, Arizona State, and San Diego. And then with the 16th seed, the final region, Arizona, will be hosting there with USC, Texas A&M as the 3 seed, and Sacramento State. However, Texas A&M, after getting swept by Mizzou, could possibly be one of the first 4 teams out.
Yeah, actually, I think that it is pretty much predicted they are out unless they at minimum win the series against Georgia to end the season, but maybe even need to sweep it because they just lost to one of the worst teams in the entire country, who didn't have a single SEC win and then ripped off 3 straight, and they got trashed in 2 of the games. This wasn't, one of the games they blew a huge lead. The first game they blew like a 9-1 lead and lost. They just got dominated in
that
games
Hall
2
of
and
Champions
3
mentality that they've got there in Aggie land.
And so they are set right now to become the first team in the history of college baseball to start the season number 1 and not even make the postseason, because it's incredibly, you have to be really bad to not make the postseason at all in baseball.
To be one of the top 64 teams or one of the top qualifying 64 teams, it takes a lot. And last I checked, again, this is the projections before this weekend's results. SEC's got 14 teams in there, Jake. That's nearly the entire conference. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, the football maybe didn't quite live up to the hype this year as far as, coming into the SEC first year for Texas, with a lot of teams kind of having down years. Basketball was way above what we expected. Baseball, I was curious after basketball. I was like, what if baseball just ends up not being it? That hasn't been the case.
No.
The baseball is just as loaded as we thought. And it is, every weekend's a dogfight because, having a Florida come in is just different than having an Oklahoma State, an Iowa State, a K-State, having any of those teams come in. You catch Florida at the wrong time, and they have a bunch of players who are probably going to be playing in the big league someday, or at least playing in the minors. And so, and they're towards the bottom of the standings, and you catch them on a weekend and you lose to them, just like Tennessee lost to Florida. I mean, you've seen almost every top SEC team lose to the bottom half teams, whether it be at home, on the road, whatever.
And it's just a rotation of who,
unless it's Missouri, because they're terrible and no one could lose to Missouri.
That doesn't happen in the SEC. Missouri doesn't beat teams in the SEC. But yeah, no, it is. It's been a rotation. It's been a revolving door of whose turn is it this week. And Texas, unfortunately, has been on that losing end of it. Of their turn came up. They were the last ones through that rotating door. But that's just how the SEC works. Jake, do you want to go ahead and I guess give a take on the field of 64 and kind of the hosting teams, and then we can move over to softball real quick. And again, I know this is a projected, still about a week out before we get into postseason play.
First off, I just want to shout out Billy Liucci for at the start of the baseball season saying that Missouri did not count as an SEC baseball team, and then getting swept by them.
That's actually a really good take on his part, Jake, because the sweep never happened.
That's true. Do you get swept if you really lose? If you lose to a team that you said didn't count as an SEC team? Does it really count?
That's a great way for him to be like, well, your sweep against Missouri doesn't count, but also our sweep that we got swept also doesn't count. It's a great spin zone by Billy. Got to give him props on that one.
That's what Texags and their crew do. They are the spin zone champions.
Those goalposts, Jake, they move at least 50 yards every tweet. Every other tweet,
it's
a 50-yard change of where the goalposts are.
But no, looking at these regionals, I'm pretty excited about college postseason play this year. That Vanderbilt one, I kind of hope that's the one it ends up being, because Vanderbilt, Louisville, Xavier, those 3 would be a lot of fun. Louisville's a dangerous team that has a lot of good wins this year. Vanderbilt's a good team, but that one would be a lot of fun. And then also I like Coastal Carolina. I kind of want to see how they do.
Yeah.
They've won a national title in the last decade, and
they've got NC State and Florida in there. That's not an easy
and that's another one that looks really fun, especially with Florida playing the baseball they are right now.
Right.
And I've been to Coastal Carolina's baseball field, and it's a pretty cool little stadium there and a good environment they have. Their fans are pretty pretty passionate down there. So always kind of like rooting for Coastal Carolina on the side. But yeah, I mean, several of these would be very interesting. You always think, well, if you're hosting in the regional, it should be pretty easy. And then you look at it, for even Texas, if they are the 1 seed, having UTSA as your 2. Texas lost to UTSA earlier this year.
Sure
Granted, in a Tuesday game has a little bit different implications as far as how the pitching works out and stuff. But getting healthy for Texas, which means getting Max Bailu back at this point because they're not getting Jared Spencer back, figuring out the pitching rotation, what it needs to be, because I do feel like it's a little out of sync, out of sort right now, and just getting back on the same page is going to be a key going into the postseason.
I completely agree. All right, Jake, let's go ahead, wrap up the show with some softball talk for maybe the last 5-10 minutes or so, and then we'll put a bow on it, wrap this up, and then move on to tomorrow's episode. But it started SEC tournament play, and it was the Ole Miss Rebels who actually came out over the Florida Gators in the play-in game to play against Texas, and it was number 18 Ole Miss losing to Texas. That happened on Thursday afternoon, 7-6. Texas should have been a much better team. Playing an Ole Miss team with Texas's caliber and where they're kind of supposed to be in terms of where they're looked at nationally, that should have never been a 7-6 1-run difference win. Texas softball just not playing their best games here towards the final really month of the season. Really, you go back to that Tennessee series. You swept Kentucky, but Kentucky is not a team that should be competing with Texas at any stretch of the imagination. But you struggle against Ole Miss, and then you come across Texas A&M in the semifinals, and wow, talk about taking them to the woodshed, belt to ass, just demolished and embarrassed this Texas team. What I'll let you say the stat, but I mean, one of the worst losses?
It's the biggest blowout in the history of the rivalry in softball. And I even texted you the day before the game. I was like, this is going to be ugly. Like they don't have a chance against A&M. It was worse than I expected.
For those who don't know, 14-2 in 5 innings.
Yeah, it was far worse than I expected. And I had texted you saying, I think I said something along the lines of A&M is going to trash us.
You had predicted a big A&M win, but you didn't predict that type of win.
No, I would have thought the game would have at least been completed, not been a run roll. And that game was over after inning 1.
Yeah,
it was over. The run rule was sealed essentially after the second inning.
Yeah, I turned it on, and I thought I was pretty late to the game. I was like, oh man, I was getting home from work and all the things, and so I got home and turned the game on, and I was like, oh man, I probably missed a good portion of this game. It was in the 3rd inning, so I was like, oh cool, and then I looked at the score. I was like, oh no, it's 11-0. And this isn't going to end well. So I turned it on, and then I immediately said, nope, I'm going to watch playoff hockey instead. And I turned it on to a hockey game, and I don't even know what game I turned it to. I just turned it immediately as quickly as I could off of the softball game.
Yeah, I mean, softball didn't have a terrible season, but when you start number 1, and I'll be honest, I feel like they have a 0% chance of winning the national title at this point. It feels like a failure of a season already. And obviously they can change that, but right now it feels like a failure of a season.
And Texas fans are going to come after you a little bit, Jake, because here's what the narrative is going to be. Okay, well, they won a game in the SEC tournament. Okay, they got beat by the team that had a share of the championship, by the way, between Texas A&M and Oklahoma, of all teams, shared an SEC title. It is kind of funny, though, that A&M, even whenever they do get an SEC title, they can't get it outright. They do have to share the SEC title. That is pretty funny. But that was horrendous and just god-awful to spew out of my mouth. But the narrative is going to be, oh, well, regionals is coming up. They're going to get hot. They're going to be playing good. They'll probably, Jake, even make it to the College World Series. And then people are going to say, well, you can't call the season a failure after making it to the College World Series.
Yeah, but in a year, for me, it's like this year, Texas should have undoubtedly been better than OU. And they weren't at all. OU was the better softball team this year. OU's very young, and this Texas team is much more experienced. And that is really, really concerning to me, just because it's like, what's the next couple years going to look like? And obviously, I'm not saying, Mike White's on the hot seat or anything. He has plenty of grace there right now. But I'm curious to see what these next couple years are going to look like. This is all saying the softball team could make me look like an idiot, and I hope they do.
Yeah.
They get hot, they go on a run. It's possible. But when you start the year number 1 and you end up being, the 4th seed in the SEC, you get swept by OU, you lose a lot of series down the stretch, you get absolutely demolished by A&M in the SEC tournament. I don't think what I'm saying is outlandish.
Well, Jake, I'm not sure that they're just guaranteed to get out of super regionals by any means.
No, I don't think they're guaranteed to make the World Series. The only thing they have going for them is they've done a pretty good job of beating the teams that are below them.
Yeah.
But when it comes to beating the teams that are more even or at this point above them,
yes, because there's a handful of teams that are above them. I mean, they're a 6 seed going into regionals. There's at least 5 teams that in the entire nation has ranked ahead of them.
Yeah, and so at the very least, those teams that are above them are on a level playing field. They have not been very good against this year. The Florida series felt like a huge win when it happened. Florida, it's not a bad team, but hasn't turned out to maybe be that top 3 level win that you thought it was at the time. And so hopefully they can prove us wrong, but going into postseason play, I mean, I'm confident they'll make it out of the regional. But after that, I'm not really confident in anything.
Here's what your regionals look like. This is solidified. This is the actual bracket, by the way, for softball starting up this upcoming week. Texas A&M is the 1 seed. They'll be taking on St. Francis as the number 1 overall seed. In Norman, the 2 seed Oklahoma Sooners taking on Boston College. They've got Omaha and Cal also in that region. The 3 seed will be played in Gainesville, Florida. The 3 seed, they'll be playing Mercer. Florida Atlantic and Georgia Tech also playing against one another in that region. Arkansas. So your top 4 teams are teams coming out of the SEC. You've got Arkansas as the 4 seed. They play St. Louis, Indiana, Oklahoma State also in that region. The 5 seed Florida State will be taking on Robert Morris. And then here in Austin as the 6 seed, Texas will be hosting a regional. They'll be taking on Eastern Illinois and then Michigan and UCF in that 2-3 matchup. And so, that's kind of where Texas is right now. So they've got to get out of this region with Eastern Illinois, Michigan, UCF. I don't see a world in where they don't make it out of this regional. Like you said, we're both pretty confident about that happening. But going on past then, I mean, it's a coin flip.
Yeah, I mean, the good thing is they're going to host in the supers as well. So that, gives them, all they got to do is protect, home field, and they'll make the World Series. Much like baseball might be in the situation of, but yeah, that's the biggest thing they have going for them is they did enough early and middle of the season to lock up, a high enough seed, and they have enough quadrant 1 wins and all that to where they locked up a high enough RPI ranking and everything that they would get to host both a regional and a super regional. But that said, I doubt the confidence is that high on the team right now. And I definitely think from the fan side, confidence is very low.
Yeah, Jake, I want to let everybody know too. So that's going to wrap up today's episode, but tomorrow's episode is going to be pretty interesting. So we are going to essentially react to the Josh Pate State interview with Steve Sarkisian that he released last week. I believe it was on Thursday he released that episode. And so it's about a 45-minute long one-on-one sit-down interview with Steve Sarkisian. If you have not watched it, go and stop this video right now. First of all, give us a thumbs up and a subscription, and then go to Josh Pate's homepage, watch that interview with Steve Sarkisian, and then prepare yourself, do your homework for tomorrow's episode. Jake and I are going to essentially be breaking that down, reviewing it, talking about it, reacting to it, and that'll be our entire episode for tomorrow's episode. So a little bit of homework for the listeners today. Go and watch that Steve Sarkisian interview with Josh Pate. It's the Pate State interview series that he has on his Josh Pate College Football YouTube page. Give that a listen, and we'll join in on the conversation of how we react to it. It is insane getting in the mind of Steve Sarkisian for that long, and so really looking forward to tomorrow's episode, Jake.
Yeah, it's not even homework. Just if you're a fan of Texas football, or and I assume you are if you listen to our podcast, then
if you've gotten into the depths of All in Horns, then you're a diehard Longhorn fan.
Yeah,
we
and so if you probably have already listened to it, but if you haven't, it is worth, even if you're not a big Josh Pate fan, which it's okay to be wrong. He's the best in the business right now as far as solo host shows go. But the interview with Sarkisian, really all of his coach interviews are really interesting, but the one with Sarkisian was a lot of fun, and kind of really get in the mind of Steve Sarkisian, and looking forward to talking about it, just because there's a lot of interesting things I think to talk about out of that, and just my respect for Steve Sarkisian just continues to only go up the more I hear him talk.
All right, Jake. Well, let's go ahead and wrap up today's episode. Again, like, share, and subscribe. And we will see you tomorrow for our discussion, our reaction of the Steve Sarkisian 45-minute long sit-down interview with Josh Pate in tomorrow's episode. That's Jake Jimerson. I'm Tanner Carlson. Again, happy belated Mother's Day to all the moms out there. We love you. Couldn't do it without you. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, hook 'em.
All in Sports Network. We love sports.